Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Case for Construction Culture podcast. I'm Tom Esch, president of Esch Consulting. I'm with Greg Beckius with PE Services. Hi, Greg.
Right.
Greg is director of environmental health and safety at PE Services based in Eagan. He's been there a couple of years, right, Greg?
Yeah, yep. I came to PE Services in 2020.
Excellent. Pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Case for Construction Culture podcast. I realize your culture is different than many other construction guys and women that I've interviewed on the show here, in that you aren't physically doing the actual construction labor, correct, Greg?
That's correct. A lot of times in our roles on construction projects, we're providing oversight and contract administration on behalf of the owner for these large scale projects that we're on.
Yes, and you specialize in engineering design, construction support, and you're working on transportation projects right now. You're on 494 in Bloomington, major project, major freeway, right? You guys have done major bridges, the 36 bridge over the St. Croix River. You guys have
Yep.
helped with, correct?
Yeah, yep. You hit the nail on the head. Where we focus on those large scale DOT projects across Minnesota and the greater Midwest area.
Yeah, and I have to mention your CEO, Jennifer Hildebrand, who's our connection, because I think she's an amazing leader, really growing your company. She's very talented and very, very good at the engineering things and the people things, which I think helps the culture, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I worked with her at our previous employer, and then she had this opportunity to purchase professional engineering
Mhm.
services back in late 2019, and I leapt at the opportunity to come with her and help grow PE Services what it is today.
Nice. And I know you lead a team of I think four, and then you have some interns. What, eight different interns in the whole company this summer, correct? Mostly from the U of M?
Yeah, yep. So I have four environmental specialists that report to me, and then company-wide we have eight interns that have a variety of experience both in the civil engineering, construction management, as well as the engineering role.
Super interesting. Well, I'm really curious what you have to say, and I'm curious to start off. What are you excited about in your safety work and your environmental work? I know those are two hats, distinct hats you wear. What's exciting? What are you looking forward to this summer here in Minnesota with some crazy weather and some busy life? I know at home with two little boys. But what are you excited about here?
Yeah,
Work.
so I'm finally we're finally into the construction season. It was a little bit slower to get into the construction season this year, but now the weather is turned and it's nice to see that during the winter months our office is full of people, but I always like to see nowadays our office is very a ghost town because everyone's out on our construction projects. And one thing I'm really excited for to help continue to grow professional engineering services. Um, as part of our management team, there's eight of us on our management team, um, and we get together each year and go through strategic initiatives that we want to um, kind of implement for the forthcoming year. And I am leading the effort for our developing employee skills and training strategic initiative.
Mhm.
I'm excited to push that leadership beyond your typical soft skill development. I want to impart those different skills in terms of conflict resolution or how to communicate with clients because those are essential skills in our consulting role. And I think we're building those clear lines of communication as well as those tracking metrics that our staff can kind of gather and impart that those skills on their projects.
That's really interesting to me, Greg. We have to talk more offline about that because
Yeah.
that sounds like that's in my bailiwick, pushing beyond the typical soft skills. And I hope you will include rank and power and how people understand their own ability to influence others based on their status, by their position, their status by their own psychology. I would love to have more conversation, but you're excited about about creating that, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned like a lot of times on these projects, we're like you said earlier, we're not the ones that are digging through the dirt, but we're there to support not only our client, but as well as the contracting partner.
Yes.
We're talking to everyone from the laborers to the foremen to the supervisors, all the way up to the
Yes.
project managers. So it's just a way to kind of fine tune those communication skills to be able to communicate with across all spectrums on these large scale projects.
Yeah, you're communicating with people on so many different levels and having
Yeah.
to probably adjust your approach because it's very different if you're talking to the general manager of the project versus a laborer, working for the contractor who's on their third day. That's a different conversation, right?
Yeah, adjust your approach by who you're talking with, and adjust your approach by um, each phase of the construction project. These construction
Yeah.
projects, they're exciting in a way that they change daily, hourly,
Hmm.
and it's all more than often than not, unfortunately, weather dependent. So, how do you have these conversations about schedule changes, difficult construction operations with these people on these construction projects, so you kind of get to the ultimate end goal of your project.
Yes, which brings me to the second question. Perfect lead in, Greg. What are some of your challenges that are facing you this year? Uh,
Yeah,
on any level you want to answer, what are one or two of the top things you're concerned about or challenging you?
yeah. So one of the big challenges working for a company like PE Services, we're about 50 strong, give or take, during the summer months.
Hmm.
And like I mentioned, one of the challenges to impart our safety culture and make sure that our entire staff is feel supported. Um, a lot of our staff are out on projects across the state, and sometimes they're on projects by themselves where more often than they not, they don't um, have those daily interactions with our management team. And we saw that as not an issue, but a challenge to our management team specifically to kind of revamp our, we call it touch points for our staff to make sure that they feel supported. Um, so we have also revamped our audit program, and that's a big thing with that strategic initiative I mentioned earlier. That's another one where we focus heavily this year on the quality of the product that we are delivering for our clients. And what better way to do that than internally audit ourselves? We have regulators auditing us. Why not us audit ourselves to make sure that we are ready to deliver these quality products to these owners and contractors? And it's just an added way to make sure our staff is performing quality work and feeling supported by our management staff by getting those internal audits and those touch points.
So the audit process is a way to evaluate the project and keep in touch with the person who might be out there on their own. And
Correct.
what? How
Yep.
far away could they be? How far out do you guys go?
So we have a couple projects across the border in Wisconsin, and then one large one down in Rochester. So we don't see distance as a barrier for performing these audits. Our management team um, focuses heavily on wanting to provide that support for our entire team um, to kind of remove that those barriers of feeling on an island because we've
Mhm.
all been there. Early in my career, I was driving up to Virginia, Minnesota daily, and um, it's, it's difficult to feel a sense of uh, culture and family from a smaller organization like ours
Mhm.
unless you have those uh, personal touch points with each staff member.
Mhm. Awesome. So how do you define culture, especially in the midst of the kind of company you have, where you have people out, in the dangerous land of Wisconsin? My God, talk about a dangerous land for needing safety over there, Greg.
Yeah.
The Green Bay Packers and the
Yes,
Niners
especially if
and
you're, yeah, like a Viking
Badgers.
fan. Yeah,
Oh,
Viking.
drive with your was Minnesota plates over there. You're in enemy territory. How do you define culture in the midst of people being dispersed, being out there, sometimes feeling alone? What are some things you think about with a word as big as culture? I mean, I realize it's a giant concept, but how do you define it or think about it, and how do you promote healthy, safe culture in that kind of world that you're in?
Yeah, culture to me is not um it's not in the walls here at the office. It's essentially in our the way you walk. And what I mean by that is what does our how does our staff perform their duties when no one's watching, when they're not being audited, or when the manager is not watching over their shoulders?
Mhm.
It's shaped by our shared company values and decisions and daily behaviors. And what better way to impart the culture of professional engineering services by um, to our staff by way of, if I'm going to require this of our staff, well, I have to perform that way as well. So it's kind of lead by example, is in a simpler way of putting in it. And we define our culture under four buckets here at PE, under quality, which is the big one, branding and image. If PE services stands for professional engineering services. What's the P stand for? If you're looking like a slob on your construction site, you're not really professional. And
Mhm.
your quality of work slips, your safety slips. So branding and image is another one.
Mhm.
Customer service, which kind of is in line with our consulting roles, and
Mhm.
then financial responsibility, which also is in line with those consulting roles.
Mhm.
Always have your ear open for future opportunities to come about, because these construction projects, they're nice, but they ultimately end at a certain point when
Mhm.
the road is open and the vegetation is established. Well, we got to look out for those future opportunities.
Mhm. Mhm. Nice. So it's not in the walls, it's in the way you walk. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. And what you do when no one's looking.
Yeah.
And how do you and I know you mentioned that safety is related to some of these values you guys are promoting. How do you shape a safety culture, especially a company like yours, where it's not typical, right? You're not do talk, I mean, I'm sure you do talk about slips, trips, and falls, but
Yep.
I don't know if you're talking about confined space, but how do you shape that culture, and what kind of training have you had or your top leaders have had in influencing, good safety outcomes? Because you guys really care about good safety outcomes. You care about the environmental side. If there's been a lot of rain, if there's some runoff, if there's some toxic waste somewhere, you got to watch all that, right? What sort of training do you have, Greg, in influencing safety outcomes in those kind of situations, which are trickier than most in a way?
Yeah, very. One of the big ones that we trying to drive here is to remove those silos that you can see at larger corporate jobs.
Hmm.
We want to have our staff feel comfortable to be able to contact anyone if they see a safety concern on site, if they need additional PPE for one of their job duties,
Hmm.
if they see a quality issue on a project, if they see a concrete pour that's they know that's not gonna the concrete's not gonna pass the test. Well, speak up and say something before it becomes an issue, and then down the road when we're wanting to close the project, well, this is an issue, we can't, and that just adds to construction delays. So kind of imparting that knowledge into our staff, that if you see something, say something.
Hmm.
And if they're not comfortable in talking to the individual at fault right away, well, there's a contact hierarchy that we can go and enact where you can talk to the next person up on that communication tree or talk
Mm-hmm.
to your reporting manager, and then we can have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like you mentioned, we don't do the digging or working in trenches
Mm-hmm.
during our daily operations. We're more observing and providing that oversight. But as part of the safety program that I've created here at PE, it's imparting that knowledge and training our staff regularly each month, coming up with a new topic to train on. Hey, as a reminder, we all know about trench safety and the trench requirements, but here's another reminder, just so it's always at the forefront of their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's was one thing that I kind of brought forward to professional engineering services when I came here. I worked for a contracting company before PE. And one thing that they always did, because safety is always number one, as it should be,
Mm-hmm.
was before each meeting, depending on how small or large a meeting was, they started out with a safety moment, just so it's always a reminder
Mm-hmm.
that safety should always be number one in our minds.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. How often do you ever hear about the tension between safety and profitability, Greg? And you've mentioned quality or safety and quality. Sometimes we hear, I can't do it that way, Greg. It's going to take too long. We got to get this job done. We got to make this stuff happen. Do you ever experience that at PE services and in your role?
Yeah, so we more on the environmental side because I would hope that safety is not never uh, the one to be able to cut corners. But on the environmental side, sometimes that's always the easy one to cut a corner around a regulation. But
Mm-hmm.
we always remind our projects that, well, you can cut the corner, but if a regulator comes out, then that causes a bigger issue in terms of uh, potential fines. They could shut us down. Where just do it right the first way. I know it's a pain, but it's in line with the regulations and the permits. Um, and ultimately, it'll probably be cheaper in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Is there an example of an environmental situation where you would hear that?
Yeah, a lot of times it involves dewatering.
Mm-hmm.
When it rains on a project and our roadway or our future roadway fills up with water,
Mm-hmm.
we got to get that base layer dried out so we can continue with construction practices. And
Mm-hmm.
um, that dewatering is deliberately pumping water off your site to a receiving water. And um, you can do it the fast way by throwing in a trash pump in a trench and pumping it off site. Um, but more often than not, that water is chocolate milk leaving into our rivers and streams, and that
Mm-hmm.
is against our permit violations.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of doing it the quick and non-compliant way, let's stop, come up with a plan together, both from a contractor side and an owner side, and
Mm-hmm.
then be able to uh, treat and pump that water more effectively. So we are set up for success when more rain comes.
Interesting. How do you treat water so it's not chocolate milk, Greg? I'm not a water dewatering
Yeah.
expert.
Yep. There are a variety of ways. You can do your standard pumping into a dewatering bag.
Mm-hmm.
Those are readily used on smaller operations, but it also depends on the type of sediment that's floating in the water. That those dewatering bags will work for larger particles, like
Mm-hmm.
sandy water, but then you get into those clay particles that is the very
Mm-hmm.
fines, and it's very hard to treat unless
Mm-hmm.
you maybe beef up your dewatering operation to a chemical operation, pumping it to a
Wow.
tank.
Wow.
injecting some type of flocculant, and then
Wow.
that flocculant attaches to that sediment particle and drops out a suspension, so you can skim off the top that clear water.
Wow. Really that filtering is really a process, isn't it? If you have
Oh yeah.
any amount of water, that's got to be a headache some days.
Yep, and that's what we help with our clients. We like to um, offer those solutions before they become issues in the field, so we can
Hmm.
be ready because rain's never going to stop.
Mm-mm. No, we seem to have more dramatic rains all the time here in Minnesota. Uh,
Yeah.
Finally, Greg, unless you have another comment after this, do you have a story of a change effort, either at PE Services or any company where you've worked? I know you've spent some time at some other places
Yeah.
like Mortenson and WSB and other
Yeah.
spots. You don't have to even name the company, but anytime you were part of a successful change or a attempt of change that failed in terms of culture or safety, any example come to mind for you?
Yeah. Working on these large scale projects, there are a lot of stakeholders involved with them to deliver a successful project.
Hmm.
Um, and working with all parties, we want to ensure that all the regulations are followed, whether they be environmental regulations or safety regulations. And that can be a big challenge, especially on these large scale, fast moving projects.
Mm.
And like I said earlier, we don't want to skate the rules because that is against regulations, and it makes for an unsafe and non-compliant environment, both from the safety standpoint and a environmental standpoint. In my role specifically,
Hmm.
um, so before in my earlier in my career, it was I didn't have a lot of experience, so it was just go out and do my inspections and then go back in the office and email the report out at a later date. And that is not efficient um, or cohesive way to do our roles on the projects. It's because, like I said, there's a lot of stakeholders involved. Well, involve those stakeholders in your operations. Invite them out during your inspection. Say, all right, this is what we're seeing. Let's come up with solutions right on site so we can already get the ball rolling um, to implement those solutions before the report even comes out. Because with all of our stakeholders, we all have the same end goal. We want to complete the project on time, on budget, and safely.
Hmm. Nice. Is there anything I hear you got to involve the stakeholders. Do you have an example where you've done that and it went well, or an example where you did that and it didn't go well that you could name without getting anybody fired or in
Yeah,
trouble?
yeah, yep. So on the aforementioned project that I'm on, the 494
Yeah.
project,
Yeah.
working on behalf of the DOT team. I'm the lead environmental compliance manager,
Yeah.
and we did get a regulatory audit, and from the MPCA recently, and we saw that not as a challenge but as an opportunity. Regulatory audits are never the most glamorous, but they're needed to make sure that we it holds us accountable. So I got all of the stakeholders in a room together, both from the owner side and the contracting side, and we
Wow.
performed this audit hand in hand with the regulatory agent. And then after the inspection, we sat down and had a one-on-one debrief with them and said, "All right, this is what we saw in the field. These are some of the action items." And then just the continual follow-up in writing with that always helps too. And then ultimately, it came back where the site was in compliance, which I already knew, but it's always all nice to kind of come across that realization from outside sources too.
That's a great story because there's a lot of ways to do audits, I'm
Yeah,
sure. that you don't necessarily want to bring the auditor into the circle of conversation, right? It sounds like you did that and it went well.
Yeah, yep. And our what I previously mentioned on doing internal audits across our projects internally for PE, that
Hmm.
also helped set us up for success when a regulatory audit
Sure,
came to play, and that's something
sure.
that we're offering to all of our staff and all of our projects. Like, hey, we might not be audited by a regulatory agent right now, but it will come in the future. So let's set
Yeah.
ourselves up for success.
Is that typical from your experience in the engineering world or not so typical what you're doing there?
Um, I think a lot of engineering firms do something in terms of audits, but all engineering firms and contracting firms see quality as a big component of our roles.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or I would hope so, at least.
Sure. Well, it sounds like what you're doing is working and just getting all the stakeholders in a room together is a battle, as we all know, with the world the way it is.
Yeah, especially on large scale projects such as the ones that we're working on.
Yes, no, your role is so important and what you do is really crucial. And it's nice to know you're doing it with such integrity, good communication skills. You're planning to improve the communication skills of your people. So I'm very impressed with PE Services, with what you're building and Jennifer's doing. And I want to continue to stay in touch with you, Greg. How can people be in touch with you? Unless you have another final comment of any sort, you want to have any final comment, and then just let us know how we can reach you.
Yeah, no, I want to thank you, Tom, for reaching out to Jennifer and myself.
Mhm.
Like you mentioned earlier, we're a small woman-owned business, but we're
Yeah,
growing. We have big aspirations for years
yeah,
to come, and it's always nice to get our name out there and show what we can do from a safety side, an environmental side, but mainly a culture side. Because historically we're a small company. We started out in the garage of our founder, and we've
mhm.
grown to expand to over 50 people.
Yeah,
Um, but as far as reaching out to me, um, like you said, I'm based out of our Egan office,
yeah.
and I'm not sure if when this is posted, if you'll have my email and phone, but I always tell my wife and kids in my role, I always have to be available day, night, weekends.
Yeah,
So
yeah. We will definitely post some contact info when we put it out there, and I appreciate your time, Greg, and thanks for being on the podcast.
thanks, Tom.
All righty, take
Bye.
care.